Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Come On In, a short story anthology all about immigration. Down below in the description you will actually find the link to the book tour schedule so you can see what else other people are posting all about this book, and I will leave other relevant links down there as well. Now, since this is a dedicated review to a short story anthology, I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I usually do when I'm reviewing anthologies. I'm going to be mentioning my brief thoughts on each short story. It's not going to be super elaborate, but I do want to give you all kind of an idea of what my thoughts were on all of the stories. It's safe to say though that I enjoyed them because I rated this anthology 4 stars. I thought it was a solid anthology. Most of the stories were really good, really well crafted, and even if they didn't work for me, all the stories, they still had something unique and special to them, so I still appreciated their inclusion in this anthology. Also, let it be noted that I won't be mentioning the names of all the authors because it's 15 different authors, a lot of them with names I don't know how to pronounce and I don't want to butcher them. And I'm a grad student, so I film videos at the last minute whenever I can, so I'm sorry, but I won't be mentioning the short stories by title. The first story is All the Colors of Goodbye. I really enjoyed this story. It was so poetic. The writing of it was just so reminiscent of poetry. The word choice felt very purposefully done. The repetition of the I was just something that it just reminded me of poetry so much. Mire, I seriously enjoyed this story precisely because the writing of it was so beautiful and careful. And yeah, I loved it. The next story is The Wedding. This one I thought was super sweet and super cute. I really enjoyed the way the author described characters in this story. I felt like the descriptions were very vivid and you could have a clear idea of who the characters were even in such a short story and such a short amount of words. If I have one complaint about this story is that it felt pretty on the nose with its comments about immigration, but at the same time all the comments were true, so pros and cons. The next story is Where I'm From. This one was super heartbreaking. It's very much about assimilation and that painful divide of feeling like you need to utterly reject your culture in order to be accepted by those around you. It was so sad because the main character seriously loved so many things about their culture, but at the same time felt like they had to completely act like they hated it, like there wasn't any value in it. And it honestly literally broke my heart while I was reading it. I liked the resolution of the story though. In general, I thought it was really well written. The next story is Salvation and the Sea by Lilian Rivera. I am mentioning this author because this is the reason why I was accepted into this tour. I'm Puerto Rican, Lilian Rivera is Puerto Rican, so this is kind of the reason why this video even exists. What I really enjoyed about this story is that it tackled a subject that is pretty touchy for Puerto Ricans, and that is that in order to live in the United States, we don't need our papers. We can just leave the island and come to the United States. And that tends to be touchy because it's not like Puerto Rico is treated so well by the United States, and it's not like we come to the United States without struggle. It's just that mainly the barrier is finances versus other elements of the complicated process of immigration. So I really enjoyed that this story went all in and decided to go for that subject because I think it's so important. Apart from that, the language in this story was brilliant. I thought that it very vividly had this progression of going from a bright and luminous description to a darker and more solemn tone by the end of the story, and I felt like you could really trace that progression throughout the story. I seriously think I'm gonna end this year being a hardcore Lilian Rivera stan because she is proving that she knows how to write. Woman knows how to write. So yeah, let me move on to the next story. The next story is Volviéndome. This one is definitely one of those stories that makes me feel stupid. And that's because the language was super rich. It's the kind of writing that you need to take your time with. Like, if you want to seriously process it, you have to read slowly and really want to take in everything at a steady pace. Since I am a grad student and I have to read basically for these tours at night, I have like 0.2 brain cells at that point. So I'm pretty sure a lot of this story went right over my head, but I did think it was super wonderfully crafted. And the problem is me and my lack of brain cells, not this story at all. The next story is The Trip. This one is another that the craft was spectacular. The pacing, the timing of it was exact. It was so precise. It steadily built tension. I felt like my heart was in my throat while I was reading this story, because it was just so spectacularly written for you to feel the tension that the main character is feeling, for you to feel the fear that she's feeling. It was just fantastic. I was really right there with our main character, and I'm so impressed, honestly. Illiterate, as you can see. Illiterate. Thank you to this author for this experience. The next story is The Curandera and the Alchemist. This one, I really liked our characters. I thought they were so sweet and so nice and just so enjoyable to follow. I don't know, there was something inherently wholesome about them that I really appreciated. And the whole story was pretty bittersweet. It made me sad, but it was also beautiful. And the writing was beautiful. I remember that while I was reading it, I was very much swept away by the writing. I thought the language choice was very beautiful. The next story is A Bigger Tent by Maureen Gu. I mentioned this author as well because I've read books by her, as might be visible right here. I love her writing, and once again, she delivered. This was a super cute story. I really enjoyed it. I especially liked exploring this idea of wanting to be close to your family, but at the same time needing distance from them, like needing that sense of community and connection, but not wanting to be consumed by it all the time, but also wanting the comfort of knowing that if you need it, it's there. Like, you can always turn to it. I thought it was precious, loved it. Maureen Gu is amazing. The next story is First Words. This is another one that heavily focuses on assimilation and why people feel the pressure to assimilate. In this case, it's because you want to make friends, you want to be accepted. So it's challenging to be like, no, I'm gonna fight against this. I'm just gonna be myself and whatnot, because it's like you're in a whole ass new country, speaking a whole ass different language than is spoken at home. Like, yeah, you're gonna want to fit in. Like, that's normal. There's nothing inherently bad about that. Obviously, we don't want it to be the only thing that happens, but we can't criticize that impulse when it's essentially a survival impulse. Anyway, apart from that, what I really enjoyed about this story was that our main character felt like she made a connection to the US through literature. She had read some books that she really enjoyed from the US, and that made her feel like she understood, at least in some part, what it would be like to live in the United States, and I can totally relate to that. The next story is Family Everything by Shamile Sayed Mendez. Again, mentioning this author because I reviewed Furia by her, so it felt appropriate to mention her name. You can check out my review in the cards above. Since this is not my first time reading Shamile's work, I really enjoyed it. I find her writing style very pleasant and easy to get through. I really like that the story is centered on this concept of a victory for one is a victory for all. It's this notion that an individual's success helps their family. It's an extended success. It's not just about them. It's about those they care about. But at the same time, I enjoyed that the story explored the pressure that puts on individuals, the pressure that it puts on those that do manage to succeed in whatever way that might mean in this case being to be able to study in the United States, and exploring that idea of feeling that tension that you're expected to like save your family or something. I feel like it's a concept that the author enjoys exploring, and I think she does it well. The next story is When I Was White. This wasn't one of my favorite stories. I enjoyed it, but I don't know, it kind of made me uncomfortable. I'm sure it was done on purpose, but it just made me uneasy. The whole premise, not into it. Just not super into it. But I did appreciate that it explored this concept of passing and being able to pass for a certain race or a certain ethnic group depending on your characteristics and how you behave in the outside world. I did enjoy that it tapped into that. The next story is from Golden State. In this one, I appreciated the writing style of the story. It wasn't my favorite writing style, but artistically, conceptually, I appreciated the choices that the author made and how she wrote this story. I thought it was interesting. I just thought it was interesting to read. The structure kept me engaged in the story, so that's honestly ultimately what matters. The next story is Hard to Say. This was one of my favorites in the anthology. I just thought it was so beautiful. Like, it had these very sad moments and these very beautiful moments, and I enjoyed that. It explored this idea of being able to communicate with loved ones beyond words. Our main character doesn't know a lot of Spanish, even though she was born, I believe it was in Venezuela. Her family immigrated to the United States when she was just, I think, like 2 years old. And so she has this disconnect where she can't communicate in the language, and her grandparents are coming to live with her and they only speak Spanish. And so it's about learning how to go beyond the spoken word to communicate what you feel, what you need with others. So it was beautiful, honestly. It was super beautiful. The next story is Confessions of an Ecuadorian by Zoraida Cordova. Again, I mentioned this author because years ago I read a novel by hers and I never kept reading stories by her. And at this point, after reading this story, I don't have any fucking clue why, because I love this story. It was fantastic. The woman mentioned Chayanne. The woman mentioned Enanitos Verde, like going straight for my heart. The author was going straight for my heart. I'm like, how dare you? Thank you. It was just, I loved it. If anything, I wanted this story to be longer. The conclusion came too quickly and I was like, no, I need more. Which basically just means I need to pick up more books by this author, like I should have done, ages ago. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. The last story in this anthology is Leaving, Fleeing, Moving. I love this story. I thought it wrapped up the anthology really, really well. I thought it was a solid conclusion to it. And thinking now on it, I didn't make this connection while I was reading it because, again, grad student dumbness is happening every day. But the title of the story really does tell you what this story is about, and I appreciate that. I thought it was really well done because it's kind of gentle if you're not pointed at it directly like I'm doing right now. I guess I'm ruining the effect, but maybe other people noticed it because they have more than a single brain cell left in their brain. So whatever, that's neither here nor there. The point is that I enjoyed this story, so yeah. So that's kind of all my thoughts on all the short stories. Again, as you can see, I mostly had very positive feelings about this anthology. It was really a very good anthology, so I would highly encourage you to try it out. Anyway, so that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will leave the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.